His name is His Grace Hari Vilas Prabhu Ji. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Prabhuji met Srila Prabhupada in the year 1969, and following year he also got initiated. Prabhuji has contributed in terms of book publication, and he has printed many of the books, Srila Prabhupada's books, in various languages like Oriya, Japanese, and various other languages. And Prabhuji has also contributed in terms of administrative helps as well as community development of Berkeley Temple and California Temple, and lastly, of course, the Seattle Temple. And Prabhuji is very, very scholarly Vaishnava. We can see Prabhuji's books. If we see Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam of Prabhuji, we can see that he has so deeply read them, understood them. So he has got a very good grip on the philosophy, and very beautifully and nicely he explains the philosophy as well. So we are so very fortunate to have His Grace Hari Vilas Prabhuji amongst us. We are really blessed, and that to hear Srila Prabhupada's glories from such a glorious disciple of Srila Prabhupada is certainly a great fortune. So we are so very fortunate to have Prabhuji amongst us. And Prabhuji has also released this book, Defending Prabhupada's Words. So these are also available today. Prabhuji, would you like to autograph them?
No, I'm sorry, my name is right here.
Okay, name is here, so here is autograph, printed autograph is here. So this also we can get after the class. So let's welcome His Grace Hari Vilas Prabhuji amongst us by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. His Grace Hari Vilas Prabhuji ki jai. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Over here on the other side, is that okay? Thank you. Hava Kunjabi Hari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Bhaja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Bhaja Jana Ranjana Bhaja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Jamuna Girabanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi. So I'm very honored to be here. I want to thank Mogalila Prabhu and all the devotees here for giving me a chance to visit your wonderful temple. I can see you have a big temple coming up, and I wish you all great success in finishing your temple and helping hundreds and thousands of people in this area of New Delhi to become Krishna conscious. The goal of Krishna consciousness is to know the science of God and to learn how to love God. It's very simple. Now, it's important to understand what the word science really means. The dictionary definitions of words are very incomplete, but the real meaning of science is something that is true in all frames of reference and at all time. In other words, it's fact that's true in the past, in the present, and in the future. It's fact that's true in the material world, in the Brahmajyoti, and in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha and Goloka. That's what science is. So what's being taught today as science is junk. Complete junk. All theories. We come from Big Bang. It all started by being monkeys. These are nonsense theories. There's no proof that any of this is true. And Prabhupada said very clearly that the education that's taking place today is completely misleading. Why? Because, number one, they say that they cannot scientifically validate that God exists. Therefore, to them, there's no God. Number two, they say, after death, there's nothing. Right there, they have limited your whole perspective on life to a very, very, let's say, very, very small concept. You only live once. When you die, it's all over. There's no such thing as Vaikuntha, Goloka. Then they also say that everything in the material world is relative. There are no absolutes. So that means you can speculate, you can, whatever you think, it's all right. Say. And then they also say that you have a right to imagine things, and whatever you imagine, that's your reality. In this way, they're ruining people's lives, and they are definitely leading people to disaster. So, if you become a brahmachari or brahmacharini, you have made the right decision. To go to school today is going to a slaughterhouse where they're going to destroy any feeling you have about Krishna. And they make fun of believing, people who believe in God. So we see that the atmosphere today is very, very negative for becoming Krishna conscious. However, there are some things that are very good in Kali Yuga, and we should take advantage of them. They're called dispensations. That means because everything is so difficult, Krishna, especially in the form of Lord Chaitanya, has made some things very, very easy. Number one, if you previously, in previous time, if you thought of doing something evil, you had to perform the act in order to get the karmic reaction. I'm sorry. Before, if you thought of doing something good, you had to actually perform the good act before you could get the positive reaction. Secondly, If you simply thought of doing something bad, immediately you got the karmic reaction, whether you did it or not. In Kali Yuga, if you think of doing something bad, you don't get any karmic reaction. You have to actually do it, right? And if you think of doing something good, you immediately get the good reaction, even if you don't do it. So these are two, let's say, perks or dispensations. Number 3, Kalya dosa nide rajan astihi ekam mahat guna kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangasya jayate. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna, you can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. This is Lord Chaitanya's special mercy, because he knows how difficult it is in this age. And number 4, if you listen every day to Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, little by little, all your previous karma is erased. That's how powerful these transcendental books are. In fact, Bhagavad Gita is Krishna speaking about himself. Nobody else knows Krishna better than Krishna. So if you want to know the science of Krishna, all you have to do is study this one book. Even if you never read or never read the Srimad Bhagavatam, everything is in Bhagavad Gita. Let's repeat that. Everything is in the Bhagavad Gita.
Everything is in the Bhagavad Gita.
You have to be convinced of that and study this one book. All you have to do is learn one book thoroughly, and especially if it's Bhagavad Gita, and you have all knowledge. You don't have to read many books. Look at the Muslims. They know one book. It's called Quran. Their whole life they're preaching on that one book. The Christians, they know one book. It's the Bible. Their whole life they're preaching on that one book. Right? But we have one book that's millions of times greater than those other books, because it has the full gamut of knowledge, or the science of Krishna. As I said, science is fact. There's no speculation involved. Okay, so one time when I was with Srila Prabhupada, I was sitting in the same car we were driving, and I told Prabhupada, Prabhupada, we just got a small temple now, and I want to start a business to support the temple, and I'm going to open a shop and call it Krishna Shop. He said, no, call it Hare Krishna Shop. He said, let them say it once, Hare Krishna. Say. And then he told me a story. He said, in ancient times, there were Malechas and Yavanas. Even before the Muslims, there were Malechas and Yavanas. And one day, one of those Malechas was walking in a village, and a wild boar came running toward him. And as soon as the boar touched him, he said, Haram! 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 And he died. And Prabhupada said he went back to Godhead because he said Hare Ram. You see? So this is also validated from the in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's explained that one day Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking to Haridas, and he said, Haridas, what are we going to do with all these Malechas and Yavanas? And Haridas said, please, my Lord, don't worry about it. We are taking care of them. He said, but what are you doing? He said, they naturally say haram, haram, haram all day long. And they don't realize it, but they're saying Hare Ram. So they're getting purified. And he said, and even more so, he said, if there's a word, like for example, let me get it here, say it exactly right. I don't carry a computer, I carry books. So, it says in the where is that? Excuse me. Okay, anyway, it says that in the, by saying that haram, which means untouchable, the Muslims are actually making spiritual advancement. So we should understand the power of the holy name. Just like Ajamila, he said Narayana at the end of his life. He didn't mean Narayana, he meant his son Narayana. But because the name of Narayana is absolute, he got a second chance. He didn't go back to Godhead right away, but he got a second chance, and he went to Haridwar and meditated. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And he became purified and went back to Godhead. So we don't realize the power of the holy name. And if we take it seriously, you will be purified very quickly, and you'll make a lot of spiritual advancement, and you'll be blessed by Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So, the story that Prabhupada told is from the Nrsimha Purana. And there are different words in different mantras. Like, for example, if there is a word like halam viktam, well, you get the benefit of saying Hari, because halam riktam. So there's ha and ri. You get the benefit of saying Hari. Or if you say, for example, other words that have these syllables in it, even though they're not together, you get the benefit of saying the holy name of the Lord. You see? So these are benefits in this age of Kali because it's so difficult to become Krishna conscious. So one time Prabhupada was giving a very, let's say, witty explanation. When he went to school, he went to a British college, and there was a Mr. Roy. He's a professor in the Presidency College. Anyway, he said, "Bara bara peti lanka dinga ke mata karet het," which means big monkey, big belly, Ceylon going, melancholy, right? So in other words, big monkey, big belly, jumping Lanka, melancholy, because Hanuman was able to jump from Rameshwaram to Lanka. Then the other monkeys were thinking, well, if he did it, maybe we can do it also. But when they tried, they saw they couldn't do it. See? That's very witty, and therefore Prabhupada was saying basically, people, especially the scientists, they claim that they can perform great feats, like, for example, going to the moon. They claim they went once to the moon. Prabhupada said, I don't believe it's true. However, he did say this, that, well, first of all, let's analyze. Why did he say it's not true? It's based on deductive knowledge. There's different types of approaches to knowledge. There's deductive knowledge, there's inductive knowledge, and there's sabda, or receiving perfect knowledge from a bona fide source. Deductive knowledge is beginning, from the Vedic point of view, beginning with the a priori truths of the Vedas. So the Vedas speak about the moon. It's a heavenly planet. And the bodies of people on the moon, the main element on the moon is subtle. It's mind. Therefore, if you go to the moon, with our body, we would not be able to see the people on the moon. although they exist there. Just like the people in the sun, the main element there is fire. There's also earth, water, fire, air, ether, but the main element, just like the main element in our body, is water and earth, and then there's some fire in the form of hydrochloric acid in the stomach, and there is also some air and so forth. So it's not surprising that even if they did go to the moon, they would not see anybody. But Prabhupada said, I don't think they went to the moon, because Bhagavatam says the moon is farther away than the sun, and it's even bigger than the sun. Okay, so what is this called? This is called deductive knowledge based on the a priori truths of the Vedas. Now, modern people, they also talk about deductive knowledge, but it's different. They begin with a hunch, with some thought that they have, and then they try and deduct assuming that hunch that they have, or that speculation they have, may be true. But if they find that they do not have validation by assuming things based on that first premise, then they know that they've chosen something wrong. But you can save a lot of time and a lot of effort by beginning from the Vedas. So Prabhupada, he was always basing things on the Vedas. And because of that, he said with certainty that they never went to the moon, because the description of the moon that they gave was not the description of a heavenly planet. It was a description of a dusty place with a lot of craters, and there's nothing there, and there's no water there. And since 1972 until today, over 50 years, they haven't attempted to go to the moon. And Prabhupada said, let's see exactly what he says. He says that, first of all, he says, they are asuras. They have already tried the moon excursion, but it was a failure. Then again, they will try and do it, and that will also be a failure. And again, they might try and do it, and that will also be a failure. Now, fast forward, since 1972 to today, it's over 50 years, and they still have not gone back to the moon. Why? They claim it's too expensive, it's a little complicated, there's no water there, that's why they're going to Mars. That's not a fact. They can't go. And Prabhupada predicted it over 50 years ago. So this is what happens when you use deductive knowledge based on the Vedas. You're not going to make a mistake. But other people might laugh at you. They think, oh, this is your belief. It has nothing to do with science. No. What they are teaching as science, like I said, is junk. But the real science is Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Then, on another occasion, Prabhupada was having some physical challenges, and somebody, a doctor, mentioned that maybe he should start eating raw food instead of cooked food. It's healthier. So Prabhupada said, okay, I will try this. So the next morning for his breakfast, already his breakfast was almost raw anyway. So he ate his breakfast, and then the cook asked him, now Prabhupada, what do you want for lunch? And he said, I want dal, rice, chapati, and halaba. And he said, but what happened to the raw food? Well, Prabhupada said that I have always loved prasadam my whole life, since I was a young kid. And I am not going to give up now. I will eat prasadam, and Krishna will protect me. This is called faith, you see, because prasadam is not an ordinary thing. If it's cooked properly and offered to the deity, it's supernatural, and it's Krishna's mercy. And this is explained also in Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter, 26th verse. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhakta prayachati tadham bhakti paratam asnami prayatat manaha. And what does it say? It says, Krishna says, offer me with love and devotion a leaf, water, fruit, and flower, and I will accept it. Now let's see what he says here. He says, Prabhupada says in his purport, for the intelligent person, it is essential to be in Krishna consciousness, engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, in order to achieve a permanent blissful abode for eternal happiness. The process of achieving such a marvelous result is very easy and can be attempted even by the poorest of the poor without any kind of qualification. The only qualification required in this connection is to be a pure devotee of the Lord. It does not matter what one is or where one is situated. The process is so easy that even a leaf or a little water or fruit can be offered to the Supreme Lord in genuine love, and the Lord will be pleased to accept it. Now, obviously Advaitacharya believed this. Therefore, he offered some Ganges water and a tulsi leaf to Shalagram Srila with all sincerity. And what happened? Lord Chaitanya appeared. That's how powerful prasadam is. That's how powerful sincere prayers to the Lord and supplication can even cause the Lord to come to this world and give his special mercy to everyone. So we should never underestimate prasadam. Whenever Lord Chaitanya went into public, and it was almost every day in Jagannath Puri, he did not preach. All he did was perform massive and ecstatic sankirtan and massive distribution of Mahaprasadam. These are our two astras, or weapons. We don't have tanks, we don't have rockets, we don't have machine guns. We have prasad and we have Harinam. If we do it on a massive basis, you will change the world. At least you'll change Delhi. Right. Prabhupada also talks about Dilika Ladhu. The Dilika Ladhu, if you have never tasted it, you feel very depressed. And if you have tasted it, but can't get it regularly, you're again depressed, both ways, you say, because it's so good. So, but that's not the case with Mahaprasadam. Mahaprasadam is absolutely important for staying, just like Prabhupada said, from my whole life I've had dal, rice, chapati, and halwa, right? And I'm not going to stop now to eat raw food. He has some raw food for breakfast, but he said, and Krishna will protect me. So this is our faith. Krishna says, Konteya pratijanihi nami bhakta pranashati. Declare it boldly, Arjuna, to the whole world that my devotee will never perish. So, if we come under the protection of Krishna, just like it says that if somebody wants to kill you, but Krishna protects you, then no one can kill you. And if Krishna wants to kill you, no one can protect you. So, therefore, we should always chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam to your full satisfaction, and preach. This prachar, someone who has life, they can preach. If they don't have life, then they cannot preach. So it's very important that we focus always on this chanting, dancing. Prabhupada said the dancing is scientific. The dancing is scientific. The Prabhupada two-step, it's scientific. And Krishna appreciates the devotees who dance nicely. I remember one time I was in Vrindavan for Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja, and the devotees started dancing. They were mostly American devotees. They all started dancing, very, very, jumping up and down like kangaroos. Prabhupada was very, very happy seeing that. So if we want to please Krishna, when we come, it's not to have darshan of the deity. It's so the deity can see you. Because whoever comes for darshan, they're coming basically to enjoy. but whoever comes to be seen by Krishna, they come as a genuine devotee. So Krishna will observe you and see if you're chanting nicely, and if you are dancing nicely, if you're nicely dressed, you have tilak on, then he's very pleased, and and Radharani will bless you. So therefore, the seer is usually the enjoyer. Therefore, we should be the seen. We should come here to serve the Lord with humility and be always very attentive, to be clean, to be honest, and to be very gentle in all our behavior. Okay, so when I was with Prabhupada on many occasions, one time I asked him, I said, Prabhupada, why did you come to America? One of your godbrothers went to England, or two of your godbrothers went to England, and then one went to Germany. He said, well, one went to England and failed. One went to Germany and failed. So I decided I would go to a third different place and fail. That's what he said. That was his humility, of course. And we see that he did not fail. But in the beginning, it looked like he was failing. But he was determined to to perform the will of his Gurudev, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. This is the secret of success. When you receive a direct instruction from your Guru, that you should take that as your life's purpose. And if you can accomplish the duty that you've been given, then you are blessed, and you'll be able to do more and more wonderful things. So therefore, it's important to follow instructions diligently, with care, and be very, very determined to get it done. Just like to build this temple now. I mean, how long have you been working on this project?
10 years.
See? 10 years. And you haven't given up? No. So you see, it's very important to be perseverant, to be determined to follow Gurudev's orders. So, because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave the same instruction to many of his disciples. He had 10,000 disciples, and many of them were very highly educated persons, devotees. And several of them tried, even one of them was funded for 3 years by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur from India to England. He was sending money every month so that Ban Maharaj could establish Krishna consciousness. And after 3 years, Ban Maharaj came back, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was there waiting for him right as he walked off the boat. And he said, "Your process doesn't work," and walked away. It's extremely, very, very disrespectful thing to say to his guru. Now, after that, no one attempted to go to the United States or Europe. None of the 10,000 disciples attempted to do anything. And everyone thought it was impossible to spread the movement in the West. So, on the centennial anniversary of Prabhupada, 1996, I organized a program in San Jose, which is like Silicon Valley today. There was no Silicon Valley then. And the chief guest, I invited Govinda Maharaj, the number one disciple of Sridhar Swami, who at that time had already disappeared, and now Govinda Maharaj was head of their mat. And he was the guest speaker. And at that time, there was a large number of devotees who had left ISKCON and joined the Gaudiya Math. So the majority of the people that came to Prabhupada's 100th anniversary centennial were Gaudiya Math people. They were previously ISKCON devotees who left. And the Govinda Maharaj came. He was a real gentleman. And he spoke. And when he spoke, he said, today I'm going to do what you people do. I'm going to confess. So he was referring to, like in the Catholic Church, you have to perform confession of your sins to get absolution from the priest. So he said, today I'm going to confess. He said, my Guru Maharaj and I were sitting in Navadvip, and when we heard about your Swami Prabhupada, what he was doing in the West, we couldn't believe it. Because since the 1930s until 1996, nobody from the Gaudiya Math tried to come to the West to spread the movement. And he said, and then later on, he said, I actually began to travel and preach. And I went to America and other places, to Australia and all over, and I saw all these devotees that Prabhupada had made, your Guru Dev had made. He said, I still couldn't believe it. He said, I couldn't believe how he did it. And then he said, so now I'm going to confess. All we are doing is eating the remnants of your Prabhupada. That was a major statement that he made. And he was being very humble about it. He was not. He was being genuine. So you see, we don't realize. I mean, you can read the Lilamrta, you can read other books about Prabhupada. You don't. It's hard to realize what he went through to establish this movement in the West. It was. He was risking his life. He had 2 heart attacks on the boat coming on the Jaladuta with no doctor, no hospital. And survived. He had another crisis when he was in New York in the 1960s. He had to go back to India to recuperate. He had some of the devotees who tried to take over the movement and were spreading false statements about Prabhupada, his own disciples. He had to put up with so many difficult things like that. But see, he succeeded because his faith in his Guru was never shaken. That is the secret to success. If you really want to be successful, and Prabhupada, if you look at things in an honest way, he's the most successful person who came from India to the West, much more successful than Vivekananda, and Ramakrishna, much more successful than Paramahansa, so-and-so. Also Vikram Yoga. So many Paramahansas have come, and they have not done anything close to what Prabhupada has done. So when we begin to realize these things, and Prabhupada clearly says that his success is based on the fact that he never did anything different than what his Guru instructed him to do. He did not speculate. He did not make any new program. In India, you say, old is gold. Well, that's a fact. I want to ask a question. Let me see what you think about it. Why do you think the Greeks, Alexander the Great, and then the Muslims, different types of Muslims, you had the Mughals, and you had also the Persians, they invaded India, and then finally the British. Why do you think they came to India? Why didn't they go to Siberia? Because India was the richest country in the world. It was the richest country in the world, and they knew it. That's why they were coming here. See? Now, why was it the richest country in the world? Because they didn't have any industries. They didn't have internet. They didn't have tanks and guns and things like that. They had Sanatan Dharma. That's why India was so prosperous. That's why the people were happy. And that's why the people were self-sufficient. Almost everyone, there were very few big cities at that time. almost everyone was living in villages, and the villages were self-sufficient. They didn't need to import anything from China or from the United States or from Europe, right? One time there was a man, he was in Delhi, and he was selling dog meat. So one man came up to him and said, "Bhai Sahib," he said, "what is this? Nobody's going to buy dog meat." He said, no, you don't understand." He said, "What do you mean I don't understand? This is English dog. Give me 1 pound." You see? So Prabhupada also said that Nehru was like that. Nehru used to come to his pharmacy every once in a while in Allahabad. But it's not Allahabad, it's Prayag, right? So, and Prabhupada said, he was never interested in Ayurvedic medicines. He always wanted British medicine. You see? So, this problem is that basically, beginning from Jamshid Tata, who ruined India by industrializing it, and many people get shocked when I say that, but it's a fact. The Tata factories are big environmental polluters in this country, and whatever welfare work they do is to cover all the damage they have done to the country. Prabhupada clearly says industries are not necessary for development of a country. Now, when I said this yesterday morning, one gentleman challenged me. He said, "Well, you're speaking in a microphone and you're using airplanes to come here and so forth." I said, "Yes, but look what's happened to your country, and look what's going to happen even worse now that they're over-industrializing the country. The environment is terrible in this country. The rivers are getting polluted, the air is not good, the food is not good, and people are living, they used to live in villages with open spaces, now they're living in concrete jungles in the cities, and there's a lot of traffic and a lot of pollution. When I first came to India in 1972, there was no plastic. There were leaf plates and leaf cups, and you just throw them and it goes back into nature right away. Now, I was shocked when I started coming later on, and I saw plastic everywhere, right? It's contaminating everything, and even cows are eating plastic, right? So this is crazy what's happened in the last couple of years, in the last 30 years in India. So therefore, going back, like we say, old is gold, going back to the original Sanatana Dharma culture is absolutely necessary. So there has to be examples of that. That's why Prabhupada, he was having a lot of success in America. Why did he come back to India and bring his white elephants, his American and European devotees? It was to shock the Indians. That, wait a minute, you're trying to imitate the Americans, and their best people are coming to your country to follow Sanatana Dharma. So they had a shock. They said, why are they coming here? We want to go there, see? So that was Prabhupada's brilliance, because he had, in his heart, he knew that if India fails, the whole world will fail. We have to make Sanatana Dharma the culture again in this country. Otherwise, you're going to lose it. You will lose this country. Already the Muslims are saying, this country belongs to us, the Hindus should leave. They're saying it openly. It's not that they're saying it amongst themselves. They're openly saying it. And the Christians and the Muslims, they print these prints of India, and they show what areas of the country they control right now, where they have a majority, and they control those areas. So therefore, you have to be very careful. You are the front line warriors, but we're going to kill, but we don't kill the body. We kill the desire for sense gratification. And we don't discriminate. Haridas Thakur, he was born a Muslim, but Lord Chaitanya did not discriminate. See? And he became the Nama Acharya, top position in ISKCON, in the spiritual movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we have to understand what our mission is. We have the science of Krishna, and we have complete knowledge of who Krishna is. Like one time, this Muslim man came to our temple. He was an imam. We invited him. We were having a interfaith conference, and he asked me if he could see the deities. I said, "Yeah, okay." We were not doing the interfaith meeting in the temple room because I didn't want people to feel uncomfortable, right? So, but he wanted to see. So we went upstairs, and he looked very carefully at the deities, like here, and he said, "So you are worshiping cow?" I said, because we had some cow, statues. I said, "No." He said, "Why the cow is there?" I said, "Because Krishna loves cows." And he said, "I don't understand." And he said, and you're worshiping these idols. I said, "They're not idols, but they look like idols." He said, "No, let me ask you a question." I said, "When you go to the toilet, do you take the Quran in the toilet?" He said, "Allah, what are you saying? Of course not." I said, "But wait a minute. Why not? Why you don't take it in the toilet?" He said, "Because the name of Allah and the sacred words are on the Quran." I said, "But the Quran is just cardboard and paper and glue. It's a material thing." He said, "No. It has the name of Allah on it. It's not material." I said, "Now you understand why we have deities." He was shocked. He was shocked. He didn't know what to say. And then he said, "Okay, let's go back downstairs now." No, we have to be able to answer these people. We have to be able to have the answers. Otherwise, you're going to be defeated. See, they're also worshiping a deity, but it's called the Quran. Just like the Sikhs, they have the Granth Sahib. Right? They don't have any deities, but they're worshiping it, right? And it's a material thing, but it's actually not material. It's something that's been sanctified. When you perform the ceremony for the installation of the deity, you invite Radha and Krishna to come and please be in the deity form, so that people can come and see how beautiful the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. So Prabhupada was very, very adamant about number one, Paka deity worship. Because if you worship the deity, and every day devotees can come and chant and bow down and also have prasadam and hear a class and maybe go out on Sankirtan and preach, then your whole life, your whole consciousness, everything changes. You become spiritually oriented. That is the purpose of these temples, is to train people to become genuine devotees. And the training is scientific. The Nectar of Devotion is a scientific book. It explains every step from beginning to end how you can go back to Godhead. And it explains the details of every level of consciousness to lead up to pure Krishna consciousness and pure love of Krishna. It is a scientific book, more scientific than any of these science books. We have to realize that. Okay, so then also, Prabhupada was met several times with Yogi Bhajan. And he said, "You Sikhs have always protected us, the Vaishnavas. We are the Brahmins and you are the Kshatriyas. You are the ones that came to Vrindavan and saved the temples and the devotees. Similarly, when this world becomes more dangerous, our two movements are going to join together again. so that you can protect us and we can preach. Now, what kind of, this is a prediction by Prabhupada here. He's speaking to Yogi Bhajan, who is a Sikh, and he's saying, look, you guys started, especially the last Sikh, Guru Gobind Singh, he started the Khalsa, and the idea was that the Khalsa are people, or men, who live like sadhus, but they fight like kshatriyas. They follow celibacy, and they're not afraid of dying. By the way, if you have a person that's not afraid of dying, it's very hard to defeat people like that, because they'll do anything to fight. And they're not afraid to die. So here Prabhupada is predicting something, that in the future the Sikhs and the Vaishnavas are going to join together again as they were before. So then also one time there was a guru, and he had some new followers, and he told them, you must always eat sattvic food. No pyaz, no lasan, and no murgi. People think murgi is something good, right? Yeah. So they said, okay, sattvic, right? So then they thought, what's the most sattvic thing? Cow. Cow is sattvic, right? So after some time, the guru asked him, he said, so how is everything going? Are you eating sattvic food? He said, yeah, pure sattvic. We're eating cow. He said, what? No, that's not what's supposed to do. They said, really? No eating cow. So then they talked amongst themselves and said, Gurudev is the most sattvic. Maybe we should eat him. Now you see, this is dangerous, right? So it's very important that if someone wants to be a devotee, they should come to class every day, because our disease is forgetfulness. So if you want to be able to, as it says, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, you have to hear, you have to repeat, and then you'll be able to remember. Very important. You should never miss class. And Prabhupada wanted class 3 times a day. That's how important, that's how much importance he gave to it. Because he didn't want you to become IT people, he didn't want you to drive a taxi or anything like that. He wanted, when I first met Prabhupada, I invited him to Paris. We had just opened a small temple, and he went first to Moscow, and then he came to Paris from Moscow. And I was initiated without seeing Prabhupada. So this was the first time I was going to see him. And when he got off the plane, and then he heard us chanting, and we're jumping up and down, and he looked up and he saw us. We were up on a pavilion, and then he looked like a golden star, not a star, a golden sun. He was like brilliant. I was amazed, and I was overwhelmed, and I realized I made a big mistake. I thought that Prabhupada was like Jesus Christ. But when I met him, I realized it was a big mistake. He was much greater than Jesus Christ. He was very, very humble, and he was very kind. He didn't force us to do anything, but everything he said to us, he only stayed 24 hours, but in that 24 hours, he actually completely gained our hearts and softened our mind and made us convinced that we're going to stay forever in this movement and do whatever we can to help Srila Prabhupada spread this movement around the world. This was how powerful, the powerful effect of having even a moment's association with him. You can't imagine what it's like. So he came to our temple. Now, before he came, the day that he was going to arrive, we did not have any money. We didn't have a car. We didn't know how we were going to go to the airport, pick up Prabhupada, and bring him back. So I got up very early that day, and I was in our very small temple room and chanting Hare Krishna, and worried, how are we going to go to the airport? How are we going to buy the boga? How are we going to buy flowers? And then I noticed that there was a brown bag on the floor. So I walked past it 10, 20 times, chanting my rounds. And finally I said, why is that bag there? So I picked up the bag, and I opened it. It was full of money. More money than I had ever seen before. Now, this is a true story. I immediately put it under my chudder, and I was thinking, what will I say or do if the person comes looking for the bag? Will I tell the truth, or will I say, no, I didn't see it? You know? So I didn't say anything. I just kept chanting. We had arti. And by 11 o'clock, nobody came. So I thought, I don't understand how this happened. Obviously, it's Krishna's mercy. So then I started giving out the money to get a taxi, buy boga, get flowers, etc. And we were able to go to the airport. And when Prabhupada came, they didn't let him out of the immigration because Shyam Sundar, who was with him, forgot to, or didn't buy the tickets for the next destination. So they did not want to let Prabhupada in. So this was like a shock. And Shyam Sundar came out and he said, Prabhu, we have to go into downtown Paris and buy tickets. At that time, they weren't selling tickets in the airport. So now we got a taxi. The devotees stayed at the airport, and myself and Shyam Sundar, we went to Paris, downtown. We bought tickets. We came back, and one or two devotees were there. They said, they let Prabhupada out. He's on his way to Paris now for the program. So we had to go back to Paris, and we had arranged to have the program in the Indian Commercial Attaché building, which is right in the center of Paris. And when I walked in, Prabhupada was there speaking to the devotees, and one devotee was introducing him to the different devotees. And I sort of pushed my way to be right next to Prabhupada. And, you know, devotees got pushed this way, that way, because I was thinking I'm the president, so I have to be next to Prabhupada. So when I sat down, Prabhupada didn't look at me. And then I had a little doubt in my mind, and he didn't say hello or anything. And I was thinking to myself, maybe I made a mistake, you know, by pushing everyone out of the way. So after all the introductions were made, finally, the devotee said to Prabhupada, oh, and this is Hari Vilas Das. And again, he didn't look at me right away, and I was like, really, I was worried, you know, why is this happening? And then finally he looked at me and he said, so you have a temple? I said, yes, Prabhupada. He said, how far is it from here? I couldn't know why he asked me that question. I said, well, it's not that far. He said, oh, how far is it by car? I said, well, it's, I don't know, maybe half an hour. He said, oh, and is there other transportation to go there? I said, yeah, you can take a train there. I said, how far is it by train? I said, well, it's 1 hour. He said, oh, then it's far away. As soon as he said that, I realized I'm an idiot, and he caught me. I have a very imperfect mind, and I was just saying things without actually knowing if they're true or not. So at that point I realized this is my spiritual master. He can see my faults immediately. And therefore, after that, when that program was over, we took a taxi to our temple, and we were stuck in traffic. At that time, the French were like the Indians. They were always, what do you call that? Horn of us, right? They were always beeping on their horns. Later on, they outlawed that, but there was a lot of noise, and we were stuck in the main thoroughfare, and I had in my Bhagavad Gita. It was the Macmillan abridged edition of the Bhagavad Gita. It's the only book we had, and I had written down questions that I would ask Prabhupada if I ever met him. So I picked one of those questions, and it was the verse in the second chapter. What is daytime for the massive man is nighttime for the introspective sage, and the time of awakening for all beings is night. And the night for all beings is time of awakening for the self-controlled or sage or the devotee. So the only thing Prabhupada heard, because there was so much noise, is, what is the time of awakening? So he said, 4 o'clock. Our devotees wake up 4 o'clock. So then Shamsundar said, no, Prabhupada, he's asking about this verse. Ya nisa sarvabhutanam tasyam jagrati samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisa pasyato mune. And Prabhupada smiled. He said, oh, he said, this verse means that when the karmis see us dancing in the streets and chanting Hare Krishna, they are laughing. They think we are wasting our life. And when we see the karmis driving in their car going viz, 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 like this, we are laughing because we know they are wasting their life. He said, you see, they are laughing and we are laughing, but our laugh is best. So this was a very novel explanation of that verse. Let's see what it says in the purport. It says, there are two classes of intelligent men. One is intelligent in material activities for sense gratification, and the other is introspective and awake to the cultivation of self-realization. Activities of the introspective sage or thoughtful man are night for persons materially absorbed. In other words, they don't waste their time coming to Mangalarti or anything like that. They don't waste their time chanting Hare Krishna. They go out at night for drinking and having illicit activities and eating meat and gambling. That's what they're interested in. That's why they're working so hard. They have the money to do that. So he said, activities of the introspective sage or thoughtful man are night for persons materially absorbed. Materialistic persons remain asleep in such a night due to their ignorance of self-realization. The introspective sage remains alert in the night of the materialistic men. The sage feels transcendental pleasure in the gradual advancement of spiritual culture, whereas the man in materialistic activities, being asleep to self-realization, dreams of varieties of sense pleasure, feeling sometimes happy and sometimes distressed, and thus, in a sleeping condition, the introspective man is always indifferent to materialistic happiness and distress. He goes on with his self-realization activities undisturbed by material reactions. So you see, Prabhupada's explanation of that verse to me was very, very unique and very witty also. So then, there was once a boy in a village, and he wanted to be special. So he decided to leave the village and become a yogi. So he went up to the Himalayas, and he was looking for a guru who could teach him to become a what you would call a mystic yogi, so he could develop siddhis. And he did meet someone like that. So when he asked the Guru if he would accept him as Shishya and teach him siddhis, the Guru said, okay. And he handed him a shovel and he said, dig a hole as tall as you are. So he started to dig a hole. And when he was finished, he said, now you get into the hole. He said, okay. And then he took this earth that he dug up and put it back into the hole. Now, it was all right up to here. And the boy said, Gurudev, what happens now? He says, don't worry, I will feed you every once in a while and give you some water. So, okay, how long do I stay here? He said, don't ask questions. Now you want to be a yogi, this is what you have to do. So after 10 years in the hole, the Guru finally said, okay, I think you're ready now to learn one siddhi. So he took him out of the hole. He spent 10 years in that hole. And he began to teach him Lagima siddhi, how to become lighter than air. And so he was able to eventually walk on water. So he left at that point, and he went back to his village, and everyone was happy to see him. And they said, well, what did you do? He said, well, I mastered one siddhi. He said, which one is that? He said, Lagima siddhi. He said, can you show us? He said, oh yeah, no problem. So there was a river in that village. So he started walking on the river, and people were shocked. And they thought he was like a miracle man, just like today. You have one person who gives some basma, and they take the basma home, and then their business does better. And all of a sudden they say, oh, he's God. Right. Or he goes like this with his hand, and then there's a gold necklace, and he gives someone, and say, oh, he's God. Right. So these are little tricks. Anyway, this boy actually walked on water. So all the village people were glorifying him. There was only one man that never came to see him. He was a boatman. He would take people across the river. So one day the boy goes up to him and said, Bhai Sahib, he said, how come you didn't come to see me walking on water? He said, I was busy. He said, but don't you think it's something wonderful? He said, well, it's not worth more than Pachas Paisa. He said, what? Pachas Paisa? He said, yeah, that's how much I charge people to take them across the river. So, actually, that's a fact. Because the real value in life is to become a pure devotee. You become a pure devotee. Let's see what happens if you become a pure devotee. Let's look at Sanjay. Sanjay did not have internet 5,000 years ago, but he had KrishnaNet. That's much better than internet because it goes right through your heart. So he was able to see in real time what was going on in Kurukshetra, which is what, how many hours? Maybe 3 hours away from Delhi. And in real time, he was explaining everything Krishna was saying and everything that was going on. That's called the KrishnaNet. It's much better than the internet, and you don't have to pay for it. But you have to be a pure devotee. See? Now, don't think these are stories that are not true. They are factual. You do not realize what your potential is as a human being. Let me give you an idea what your potential is. Surya, Brahma, Indra, Varuna, they are all jivas like you and me. But they're jivas who have attained a very high level of perfection. They haven't gone back to Godhead. They still have some material affection, and that is they want to dominate. But they have performed tremendous tapasya to reach those very high points to become devatas. Like, for example, do you know how long Brahma meditated before he was able to hear Krishna's flute play? and become enlightened? You know how long 311 trillion and 40 billion years he meditated. And that's his lifespan. And then after that, he heard Krishna's flute, and Krishna appeared before him and gave him some vision, not a complete vision, a partial vision of the spiritual world of Vaikuntha, and gave him the knowledge by which he could become number one Prajapati, and then he could create other Prajapatis and populate the universe and so forth. So then his lifespan is another 311 trillion 40 billion years. So here we see these are jivas. He's a jiva like us, but he has attained such a powerful position. You don't realize what your potential is. But our potential is even greater. You can go back to Godhead even in this lifetime if you get serious about Krishna consciousness, right? That means you don't have to worry. So anyway, when I gave a lecture yesterday, someone challenged me about modern science. And I said, look, we don't need industrialization. We don't need modern science. All we need is to follow what Krishna has said. That's explained in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it says, let me just find it. Saha yagya prajasristva pururava prajapati. Ananya parsa svista dvam esavo svista kamaduk. Lord Brahma says, in the beginning of creation, he sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with the sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna, or sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable to live happily and achieve liberation. This is the plan of God for us. We are jivas that willingly walked away from God. Why? Because we are marginal energy. Marginal energy means we were on the margin between the spiritual world and the material world. Therefore, we were able to see things happening in the material world. And some of us became attracted to it and dissatisfied that Krishna is dancing with the gopis. We were thinking, maybe we should dance with the gopis. Therefore, as soon as that thought entered the mind, we fell down. In other words, we voluntarily fell down. And we've become conditioned by the 3 modes of material nature. We've become limited by time. We've become subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. We have become troubled by lust, anger, greed, madness, illusion, and enviousness. All these things have happened because we voluntarily walked away from Krishna. And we're in a minority. But Krishna, who's a real father, he wants all of us back. Therefore, he spoke Bhagavad Gita 120 million years ago to Vivaswana. Then he spoke it again to Manu. And then Manu, he spoke it to Ikshvaku approximately 2 million years ago. And now, 5,000 years ago, he spoke it again to Arjuna. So this book has a 120 million year history. And Prabhupada wrote Bhagavad Gita Yatarup as it is, because since the 16th century, there have been translations of Bhagavad Gita in English. And there's hundreds of them, close to 500. And not one devotee was made by reading any of those Bhagavad Gitas. Just like Gandhi, he wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and he said it's all about ahimsa. What? It's about ahimsa? Are you crazy? There's nothing about ahimsa. It's all about convincing Arjuna to fight. How can you say the whole Bhagavad Gita is about ahimsa? You see? So what Gandhi did and what many people do is they piggyback on the Bhagavad Gita because they know people know this book and they think it's the truth, and then they give their own interpretation of it. Why doesn't he write his own book? Gandhi and nonviolence. No. He writes that Krishna says nonviolence, right? This is nonsense, right? But when Prabhupada wrote and published Bhagavad Gita Yatharup as it is, then people started becoming devotees. If you read Bhagavad Gita and you don't become a devotee, that means you didn't really read it. Right? The only thing most people know about Bhagavad Gita in India is this one verse. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. Which one? Karmani vadikaraste. That's the only one, and they only know the first line. They don't know the rest of it. Okay? So any taxi driver will say, Karmani vadikaraste. My duty in life is to drive this taxi and make money. That's not the meaning of that verse. See? But see, this is what happens when little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Okay? You have to come, just like one time, there was this Banya, he would take his son every Sunday to the mandir, and they would see the arati, and they would listen to the mahant speak, So this one time they went, and the Pandit was saying, listen, you have to be very kind to cows. Gomata, you have to take care of Gomata. If she walks near you, then you should give her some food. You should worship her because she is representative of Bhumi Devi. And therefore, if you are kind to the cows, then your life will be prosperous, and you will be happy, and you can develop Krishna consciousness. Krishna himself is a cowherd boy. So now you can realize how important the cow is, right? So the boy heard that, the father heard that. So then they went home. So next day he opened up his store. He was selling grains, right? So the boy had to take all the grains out, open them up, and get ready for business. And then he saw one cow coming. And then he remembered what the Pandit said. So the cow came and was looking at the grains, and the boy saw this. Usually he would chase the cows away. But because he heard the lecture, he didn't chase the cow away and let the cow eat some of it. The father was on the phone. He was actually a Marwari. He was talking on the phone, and buying things and, making money. And he saw what was going on. He ran out and said, what are you doing? He's not allowed to get rid of that cow. He's not supposed to eat anything. He said, Dad, don't you remember what the Pandit said yesterday? He said, no, you don't understand. Whatever the Pandit says, you don't listen to it. Because it's nonsense. We'll go bankrupt if we listen to what he says. Now, this is the problem. People don't take seriously. Even they come to the class, they don't take it seriously. It's like some kind of ritual that, you just sit there like this, listening, but you don't really understand anything, and you walk away and you continue doing nonsense. No, this is very serious. We have to come and listen very reverently and seriously to understand what is this Sanatana Dharma. This Dharma means your occupational duty. Sanatana Dharma means your eternal occupational duty. What is our eternal occupational duty? Devotional service to Radha and Krishna. That's who we are. That identifies us as a person, as an eternal person. There's Sat and Asat. Therefore, Sat is, I'm the eternal servant to the Lord. I'm never equal to the Lord. I'm never greater than the Lord. I am subordinate always. Okay, so therefore, this verse that Brahma, spoken by Brahma, in the Bhagavad Gita. It's all about having a scientific life. Now, let's read this, and that's the last thing I'll talk about. And it says, the Prajapati is Lord Vishnu, and he is the Lord of all living creatures, all worlds and all beauties, and the protector of everyone. The Lord created this material world to enable the conditioned souls to learn how to perform yajnas, sacrifices, for the satisfaction of Vishnu, so that while in the material world, they can live very comfortably, without anxiety, and after finishing the present material body, they can enter into the kingdom of God. That is the whole program for the conditioned soul. By performance of yajna, the conditioned souls gradually become Krishna conscious and become godly in all respects. In the age of Kali, the Sankirtan yajna, the chanting of the names of God, is recommended by the Vedic scriptures. And this transcendental system was introduced by Lord Chaitanya for the deliverance of all persons in this age. Sankirtan yajna and Krishna consciousness go well together. Lord Krishna, in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya, is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, 32nd verse, as follows, with the special reference to the Sankirtan Yajna. Krishna Varnyam Trisak Krishna Sangapangastak Parsadam Yajnai Sankirtana Parar Yajante Hi Sumedasaha. In the age of Kali, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord, who is accompanied by his associates by performance of Sankirtan Yajna. And Prabhupada says, other yajnas prescribed in the Vedic literature are not easy to perform in this age of Kali, but the Sankirtan Yajna is easy and sublime for all purposes, as recommended in Bhagavad Gita also, 9:14. Satatam kirtayantam mam chitantascha chitarataha namasyantascha mam bhakta nityas yukta upasate. So how do you recognize if someone is a pure devotee? They're always chanting Hare Krishna, or hearing about Krishna, or speaking about Krishna, or taking Krishna prasadam, or doing Krishna kirtan, or serving out prasadam. That is how you recognize that someone is a pure devotee. And they never stop. Savai pumsa paro dharmo yato bhaktir haksajay haitukiya pratyata jayatma suprasidati. There's no vacation, and there's no going to the, I don't know what it is here in India, but in America is Disneyland or Las Vegas for gambling and eating meat and doing all nonsense. There's no vacation in Krishna consciousness. If you have to be purna, completely involved in devotional service, you're going back to Godhead in this lifetime. Okay, so the next verse says, Devam bhavayat tanena te deva bhavayantu bhav. In other words, it says, the demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you, and thus by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. This is why India was so rich before the Muslims came and the British and so forth, because people believed these two verses and they followed them. And because of that, the Devatas cooperated with them. This is real science. Therefore, they didn't have to dig mines to get gold or get metals. Bhumi Devi gave it naturally. See, just like I was speaking to a miner the other day, he told me that in places of Australia, they found gigantic nuggets of gold like this table, as big as this table, right on the surface of the earth. You see, so this is science. The relationship. If we worship Krishna, then the Devatas are servants of Krishna. They will give us everything we need. We don't need factories. We don't need tractors. We don't need cars. Everything you need will be given to you easily, so that you can maintain yourself, and you'll have plenty of time for Krishna consciousness. Now people don't have any time. Viz, money, money. The new god in India is rupiah. They don't even worship Ganapati anymore. They just worship rupiah, right? And they're crazy for the rupees, right? So this is ruining the culture. Okay, so I'll stop right there. And there's a lot more to say, but that's enough. Are there any questions? Any questions? Yes. Microphone.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, for such a divine lecture, for explaining the glories of Srila Prabhupada and how divine he was actually and what message he gave to us to realize our...
Speak a little louder and slower. Go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for explaining the really divine nature of Srila Prabhupada and what he gave to us actually.
Yes.
And Prabhuji, question is that you told that you got initiated without seeing Prabhupada. So
yes.
It was surprising. So please, I want to know how you didn't see and got initiated also. Can you...
Well, when I first met devotees, they were very kind to me, and one of them sat down with me and began to explain Bhagavad Gita. And he said certain things. See, I'm a Christian, right? I was baptized Christian. I always used to go to church. And I'm still a Christian. I haven't stopped being Christian. But by hearing Bhagavad Gita, my understanding of Jesus Christ increased tremendously. That I never really understood who Jesus Christ was, even though I was going to church. Yeah, they say he's God, whatever. But actually he's the Son of God. He's not God, but he's the Son of God. So when the devotees were just beginning to explain Krishna consciousness to me, first they spoke about prasadam and chanting, right? And they said something that really shocked me. They said, we don't worship God to get something from Him. Like, give us this day our daily bread. That's the Lord's Prayer. We want to supply things to God. We want to give to God. And we don't consider Him as if He is our order supplier. We consider Him like our own child. And if we don't feed him, he might starve to death. I couldn't understand that at first. I had never heard that before, right? That you have to give to God, right? Because I was always taught, you have to ask from God, give me this, Dhanam dehi, janam dehi, rupam dehi, 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 right? No, this is giving to God, right? And you can have a relationship as the parent of God or the friend of God or the servant of God or the conjugal consort of God. I never heard that before. And that really, excited my mind when I heard that. And I at that point I thought, maybe I should stay here more and understand what they're talking about, because this was something unique, right? And then after I did join, every night, I joined in London, every night we would have hot milk with banana, and then we'd take rest. So I was sitting, and they would play a tape of Prabhupada. So this one night, I was drinking the milk and relishing the banana, and Prabhupada said, and if you do not take to Krishna consciousness, that means that you have been cursed by Yamaraj. I asked someone, I said, what did he just say? He said, I don't know. He said something about Yamaraj. And I asked someone, what did he just say? What did Prabhupada just say? And then when someone explained it to me, and that like, because I was thinking of leaving, right? And then when Prabhupada said that, my God, I said, I better think about this some more, So I don't want to be cursed by Yamaraj, right? So that's the whole point, that what convinced me finally to join Krishna consciousness, and it never left, was the fact that karmani vadikaraste mafala sukadachana makarma phala hetubur mate sangastu karmani, that this is the only way to get rid of your karma. Now, karma, we don't know what it is, right? It's going to be a mixed bag of good things and bad things. We know that. But you don't know until it happens. But I found out early on I had very bad karma. And therefore, when I heard this karmani vadikaraste verse from Brahma Samhita, I was happy. I said, now I can get rid of my karma. I can live a fruitful life, and I won't be in fearful anymore, because what really happens when you get initiated, karma is not eradicated, it's put on hold. But if you fall down, it can come back again. But if you listen to class every day, hopefully morning and evening, one by one, all your karmic reactions start to get burned. That's how powerful hearing Bhagavad Gita is. So it's not the initiation that stops that purifies the karma. The initiation puts it on a stop, because yeya tamam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyaham mamavart manavartante manusya partha sarvasa. You cannot engage in devotional service unless your karma is stopped. Right? You can try, and that's good, but the karma has to be stopped to actually engage in devotional service. Okay? So that's what happens when you get initiated. But then, if you listen to class every day, little by little, one by one, all our karmic reactions, and we have millions of karmic reactions, because we've had millions of lives, right? You have aquatics, you have plants, you have reptiles, you have birds, you have mammals. That's like 8 million right there. So we definitely have gone through 8 million lives to come to the human life. And then most of the human lives or bodies are not civilized. Now, what does it mean to be a civilized human being? Civilized human beings follow regulative principles. Early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, happy, and wise. In other words, you should take rest before 10 o'clock, and ideally 9 o'clock at night. So you wake up 3 o'clock in the morning. These are the people that do that, they're the ones that are most successful in Krishna consciousness. They're staying up late and talking on the cell phone and going on the internet. You go on the internet to look up one word, right? And you end up 4 hours on the internet, right? Why? Because the internet is binary technology. What is binary technology? 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. So the internet will take you into that 10, what you call technology, where you cannot focus on one thing. Whereas Vedic science is based on unary technology. Unary technology means one. So your mind can get fixed on one thing, you see. So whenever we go on the internet, it's a dangerous thing, because it's training us to go from one thing to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, to another thing. Whereas Bhagavad Gita, we focus on one thing. What is that one thing? It's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you have to know what's happening. Technology is very different, and now they're going to do Maya on steroids. It's called metaverse. You've heard of metaverse here? You haven't heard of it? Yeah, metaverse is Maya on steroids. Steroids is, you might be weak, right? But when you take steroids as a drug, you become like Hanuman, right? So this metaverse means you're going to live complete. You can make your own reality, right? So it's the worst thing in the world that's happening. You know, if it does happen, it'll be catastrophic. It's worse than drugs. Okay, so when I heard that I could get rid of my karma, I said, that's it. I'm not leaving. This is what I was looking for. Haribol.
Thank you. You're doing a very good show.
So I know it's getting late, but anyway.
Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Hemekadashi ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada Lilamrta ki
Don't say my
Jai.
name.
His Grace Hari Vilas Prabhu ji
No,
ki
don't say
Jai.
that. No. Just say Hari. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. That's good.
Shri Prabhupada ki Jai.
Thank you.
So we are so grateful to Prabhuji. Prabhuji explained philosophy as well as Shri Prabhupada's pastimes, his statements. That's a really amazing experience. So let's pay our gratitude to Prabhuji by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, what's the price on this book?
This is free.
Free.
Yeah.
Okay. So here,
All of them are free. And,
okay.
and you should share them because we only have a few. Yeah.
okay, yes, Prabhuji. So here is a book authored by Prabhuji and explaining Srila Prabhupada's statements, those statements which are incomprehensible for the less intelligent people of Kali Yuga people. But yes, we have a supracognitive power with the pure devotees, and they explain the right understanding of each and every word of Srila Prabhupada. So anybody would like to give donation for these, because these books
No,
are
you don't have to give donation.
No
They're
donation?
free.
It's free. Knowledge
This
is
is prasad.
It's prasad. Haribol.
We don't need money. We need Krishna's mercy. That's what we need. And you should share them, you know. You read it, give it to somebody else.